You're watching the Quite Frankly podcast with Nick Uhas.
I learned that I was in 2 different courts in 2 different cities, and that there was a fine that was rolling close to $250,000. I had to change every aspect of my life in order to survive this time frame. The portfolio at the time, I probably would have ended up with like maybe a couple $100,000. Now it's worth $5 million.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You just hit 1 million on YouTube. You've been on a successful Netflix show that you hosted for 3 seasons. Like, you've done so much. Was there a moment where you were like not seeing the result you wanted and you had a mind shift?
I went from literally thinking something was truly impossible to it being done. I just kept replicating that script, which was, it is impossible now. I will draft the plan that will force me into doing it. I will do that plan. It will be unnaturally difficult. And then I will eventually see the success. I will mine that success in that direction. And then I will eventually get the end result, because I will do anything that I need to in order to get that end result. So I've just applied that exact same mindset and that same methodology to everything. For anyone listening, and you know this too now, is that like there's a hack for an Ivy League school. But the hack is that once you're in college,
then you can
apply to an Ivy, and you still get the credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me on my dividends if it did.
All right, Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Dude.
I've known you for years, and I kind of known you, right? Like, I remember seeing you at YouTube once, the studios. I was there shooting something. I think you were there speaking, and we have a mutual friend, Mike Capetta.
Oh, big shout! Let's just give the moment for a big shout out to Mike Capetta. Who is Mike Capetta? That's like our thread through.
Yeah.
So he was my roommate.
I didn't know that.
When I lived in New York City.
Okay.
We worked together doing New York hustle business kind of stuff. And we shared our dreams together while at OSU for like what we wanted to become as media professionals. So it's like,
what was yours then and what was his?
Dude, awesome. Thank you for asking.
Yeah,
because
I like to see how it comes together.
Yeah, at the time I was just on the tail end of being a professional stunt rollerblader. So
what?
Yeah, it's not what
That's awesome.
Says. So my dream as a kid growing up was to be a pro skater, like X Games style, right?
Yeah.
Because I was born in the 80s, right, mid 80s, and during the 90s there was this like big like booming sport, right? And at the time it was like so cool, right? And so skateboarding wasn't as cool. And so I grew up with this dream of being like, one day, like I'm gonna move to Southern California and like I'm gonna be a pro rollerblader. So like all through my teens, like I skated, but I did other stuff, but it really wasn't available in Ohio. So when I got to be 18 years old, I was like, I'm doing it. Like I'm actually gonna move out to San Diego, which is where the industry was, and I was like, I'm gonna be a pro. And so my time as a rollerblader really primed me to be someone who would be very interested in the entertainment industry. So I was technically a biology major in school, and so I was actually pre-med going to go into medicine. So at the very, very tail end of my college career, after all sorts of ups and downs and laterals, I realized that what I really wanted to do was do something in media, because I loved the way that pro rollerblading worked as an industry. I found that it was very similar of like, it was built on like relationships and like how well you perform, but then also like how you can work dynamically in something that is not very structured. It's a lot like entertainment. Like it's not...
So true, yeah.
It's not like a job where you're like, well, if I work here for 10 years, I'll get the raise, I'll become VP, I'll become a board member. Like there's no structure to it.
It was like based on your performance.
Yes,
yeah.
and just how well you're generally liked.
Yeah, like the personality, like WWE people, like that character they build, right?
Yes.
Or I just watched a documentary on the, what was that show, American Gladiators?
Oh, that was a sick show.
Oh my God, but it was like, there's like a crazy story behind it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
So Mike and I we weren't roommates in college. I was actually exiting while I think he was a sophomore still.
Okay.
He was gonna join my fraternity, and he actually asked me, hey, should I join this fraternity? And I remember telling him, actually, my real true advice was, I think you're actually like too like far along in your like career trajectory. I was like, I don't think you're gonna find anything in this fraternity, which you're not supposed to say that, right?
Right.
You're supposed to recruit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was like, no, man, like I think you're actually like, your vision is so clear. Like he wanted to work in news. He wanted to work in national news. And he'd already worked for Cleveland, like a Fox local Cleveland station. So he was like way ahead of the game. And I was like, dude, you just gotta keep going. And so I left and then moved to New York. And so my dream at that time was I basically wanted to be like Rob Dyrdek. Pro rollerblader, got into entertainment, then entertainment guy turned entrepreneur.
So then why New York?
So New York, because I had gone to Yale University for summer school. And at the very tail end of that, I was asked to come back, not as a student, but to work on a feature film, filming in New Haven, Connecticut with a bunch of what would become YouTubers. At the tail end of being a summer school student, a group of YouTubers, this is before YouTube could even monetize. This is how like underground it was. They got so popular that they had come up with this idea to create a feature film based off of a web series. The actress in that web series was Brian Williams' daughter. The lead anchor of NBC.
And she became a bigger actress later.
Allison Williams.
Yeah, right.
And so at the tail end of that summer, I was like desperate for a job, and I was like just too proud to go back to Ohio. And so she said, hey, let me do some dating. And she was dating at the time the guy who started College Humor.
Whoa.
So Ricky Van Veen. So I was like, so she was like, hey, like you could be a PA at College Humor. And I knew nothing about entertainment, nothing. And so I was like,
that was nice of her to do.
Hey, yeah. That was like literally the beginning of my media career.
I want to thank you for watching, but also please don't forget to subscribe, because we're noticing in the analytics that some people are watching multiple videos but haven't subscribed yet, and it really helps me to continue to improve the show. One of those improvements is that this season I'm only having one sponsor for the entire season instead of 5. And it's Lila Quantum Technology. So they are the official sponsors of the Quite Frankly podcast. And I'm so excited because if you have followed me for a while, you know how much I love this technology. They have multiple third-party double-blind studies to show how this affects your health in a really positive way. But also the way I use it is I write my intentions on a piece of paper like this, and I put it in there, and it's now in the quantum field. So more about that in a bit, and thank you for watching.
I learned everything in 3 years in New York as far as like doing it. So like how to act, how to get an agent, how to be a host, like how you navigate entertainment, how do you survive in entertainment, how you make money for it, how you manage a freelance budget. New York timeframe was like hardcore, like work until your like eyes are like bleeding.
I remember. Trust me.
You were there?
Dude. Oh
you
my
know how
God.
it goes.
I didn't sleep in my 20s. Like I joke about it now, but it's like it was serious. Like now I take sleep so seriously.
Yeah.
Like I have a whole earplugs, melatonin,
Me too.
white noise, right? Like everything. Yeah. It's like sleep is like my little sanctuary, because in my 20s I was like, I would literally be from like the Oscars, like let's say 48 hours straight, and then I'd go cover a hurricane, and then from there they'd be like, there was a mass shooting, can you go? And I would shoot, and I mean I was never home.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I lived up on 91st and 1st.
Okay, yeah.
And
I actually don't know New York that well. I was here. I was based here, but working for the headquarters in New York.
I see.
Which is why I also didn't sleep, because they start at our 4 a.m.
Oh my God. Dude.
You know what I mean? So I'd have to be up at 2 a.m. preparing for my 4 a.m. shoot, because that's 7 a.m. on the East Coast.
Right. Oh, that's so brutal, dude.
It's actually worse to be on this side.
Worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like in New York, like everything is done like on foot, right? Like you walk everywhere, so you're getting a lot of exercise, which is really good, right? As you know, right? Like for lymph and whatever, like it's moving that around all the time. It's keeping blood glucose low because you're always constantly like moving. So there were some healthy aspects of it, but then there were also terrible aspects. Like you're working till midnight, 2 a.m., right? To make enough money to continue making like the whole machine sustainable. Like it was brutal.
So you guys met like that. That's awesome. And then he obviously became a national news reporter. Producer.
Yeah. So he did his job. Like he became his sort of dream while also in New York. So with this tiny little apartment, it was I want to say it's a 2-bedroom, but that's kind of a misnomer. It was actually just like a 1-bedroom.
Like a makeshift wall or something?
It was a large closet. So the back room, the way that I know how small it was is like a mattress would only fit a long ways in it. So that's how wide the room was. So the mattress like hit from head to toe. And there was no windows. So I don't actually know how that was considered a room, but I mean, that's New York, right?
Yeah.
So Mike actually lived on the couch because I had a roommate.
Wow.
So there's 3 dudes in a space is actually about half the size of this garage.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just like hustle mode. And so, but everyone was always out hustling, so no one was ever home. So like, we'd see each other like in passing. But then, he worked actually at ABC, then NBC.
Yep.
And so,
and that's where he and I met, ABC.
Yeah.
He was at Nightline, I was at GMA.
Yeah.
So, wow, okay. I actually am gonna like reformat where I'm asking you now, because that just took me to a whole other thing, which is, let's talk about your path on YouTube. So did those college humor days, did they teach you anything?
Oh man, yeah. So like the thing about starting so early in YouTube, right? And again, this is
what year was that?
So this is 2006.
So to give people like reference, I started in 2014, and it was very, like when I say started, 2 videos a year, like very,
Okay, yeah.
But I already at that point felt like I was late in the game.
Wow.
I remember in 2014 being like, yeah, but these people have been doing it for 5 years and they have millions of followers.
Right.
Like that just doesn't happen overnight like it did,
So the interesting about YouTube, right, because I've been in it now for so long. So by the way, when I first started YouTube in 2006, that was my first upload.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew it in 2006.
It was like kind of like underground.
I was graduating high school.
It's like black sheep, right?
Yeah.
It was like a thing that no one was really talking about. I actually uploaded exclusively rollerblading videos.
Wow.
And I was actually trying to make it into a series like Rob Dyrdek, right? Because that was the person I wanted to be like. And so I was making a series about skating in New York. But the problem was that the production cost was too high, and I didn't know how to edit or shoot, and camera equipment at the time was too expensive. It wasn't like how it is now with like iPhones. So the cost for entry was like too high for me to do. Also at the time, YouTube was like such this like new thing that everybody gave credit to something that looked the closest to television. Right? There's no vertical, by the way, in this time frame.
Yeah.
So the closer that it looked and behaved and felt like TV, the better that it would perform.
It's so true, which is the opposite now.
Which is the opposite now.
Yeah. Now they want you to have look like they're in the room with you and you're on your phone.
Yeah, it's a vlog.
Vlog. Yeah.
So at the time, I just couldn't afford to really keep it going based on the budget that I was doing, because I was trying to learn out on how to like do entertainment. And so what happened though in the very early stages is that I realized is that College Humor operated much like a studio, though. So it was bought by Interactive Corporation, Barry Dillard's thing, right? So he's a lot of money there. And so that operated like a studio show, but the budgets were really small. So I was on the pranks division, and so like I would work as a PA and a driver, and then sometimes in the pranks.
Nice.
And so I learned how, generally speaking, like entertainment worked, but it really wasn't like what we know as YouTube now. Like Casey Neistat, like all that, like that wasn't even a thing yet.
Wow, yeah.
So in those first 3 years, what I really learned was like how kind of production works really, not necessarily like how YouTube works. Now here's like, in every mistake, there's a lot of learnings, right? So my biggest mistake is like, I didn't believe in YouTube at the time. At the time, I was like, all of my Yale friends that had moved out to LA, I was like, they're gonna come back to New York and they're gonna realize this YouTube thing was gonna go bust, and like me being the traditional guy, like working the traditional industry, like I'm gonna get ahead, right? Turns out I was totally wrong, right? And YouTube in those 3 years way took off.
Wow.
And so all of those people had like windfall opportunities. Like some of my friends, like one of them had a national Nissan commercial from a YouTube series that he did singing in his car.
So these are your friends in Yale who started like taking YouTube seriously, and they did it here in LA.
They did it here in LA. They moved out first.
And you were in New York making rollerblade videos, but what else were you doing? Did you have a job?
I stopped making YouTube videos, and I basically just started like being like a full-time like actor and like commercial model, like doing ads for like Chase Bank kind of stuff.
Right.
And so like I was doing like sort of like the entertainment like actor host hustle kind of thing. Very traditional, like.
Which by the way, I also did summer school at Yale.
Really?
Yeah, and I did, but I studied morality because at the time I wanted to be a diplomat.
That's
so
awesome.
I studied morality, and I did a summer there.
What?
Anyway, so way different.
Where you stayed? Like what was the?
I don't remember because it was all online except for like 1 week that we went there. We did a week there, or like maybe 2 weeks, and it was like 10 years ago.
For anyone listening, you know this too now, is that like there's a hack for an Ivy League school, right? Which is like, so I went to a 4-year school. I graduated at Ohio State.
Okay.
But the hack is that once you're in college,
then you can
apply to an Ivy, and you still get the credit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so awesome.
It's such a hack. I love that you know that. Yeah, because then you can be like, I went to Yale.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. People are like, whoa.
They're like, dude, you must be smart.
Yeah.
Like,
Although I will say, I had a really good friend who went to Yale Yale for 4 years, like did the whole thing, and she was a cashier at Trader Joe's for like 4 years after that.
So the craziest thing about like Yale, Brown, Harvard, whatever, is like those people are ultra smart, and sometimes they get a degree in something that is like really niche, right?
Right.
But their value add skills to just the general economy at that time sometimes don't pair up. It's wild to see, because like we had friends like similar that I was like, you guys studied like international like policy and whatever else, and like they're working like at a bank or something.
Right. Yeah.
The opportunity didn't line up. Like I graduated in 2009. Like what was happening in 2009? A financial meltdown.
Right.
So it's like there was like the Great Recession. Well, a lot of that money also sucked down a lot of the ad dollars, which then put a damper on a lot of entertainment things. So there's a lot of kids that were like, studying at Yale for theater, and 2-3 years earlier would have had an easy time walking on to doing guest spots at Saturday Night Live or whatever. And now they're, hopefully they can do a local play.
So you're seeing your friend who has like this YouTube channel, right? And they're booking Nissan commercials and whatever else. Is that when you start thinking like, ooh, maybe I should go back to YouTube?
That's when I knew. Okay. I knew for sure. I watched their trajectory get to about a year and a half, 2 years. And I was like, I've made a mistake. So I came up with a new plan, right? Because now it's a new time. So I came up with a plan that I was going to go and try to harness the leverage that I had from mainstream television, and I was going to then use that to start a YouTube channel. So I decided I was going to go on reality TV. So I had a prediction that reality TV would be able to boost my social numbers, and my social numbers would be able to then leverage in order to start a career in social media. And at the time, there was no video on Instagram, but I knew that like Twitter, Instagram, like there would be a influx of followers by going on reality TV. So I had auditioned for a bunch of different reality TV shows, and the one that I auditioned for and got on first was Big Brother.
Wow, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, the problem
I can see you doing that, but go ahead. Yeah.
The problem?
Yeah.
I only lasted 2 weeks.
Okay, what did that do to your social numbers?
So there's a really interesting like snafu that will probably never happen in that show's history ever again. But it's that I was only on for 2 weeks, but I developed this relationship with one of the cast members that ended up finishing second.
An actual relationship, like
not
romantic?
Not an actual one. No.
Oh, okay.
But like kind of like one that was perceived to be romantic, but I didn't actually want it to be romantic. And so she was like, "Oh, we're gonna have this relationship after this like show," and I was very much like, "No, we are not."
Yeah.
But the house does that to people. Like it's like a real like psychological thing that happens in the house. So she talked about me the whole season through, and they kept using B-roll of me the whole way through. So I'm on the outside of the house promoting myself, doing a Kickstarter campaign to do a YouTube channel. She's talking about me. We have no connection, right? She doesn't even, because that's how the way that show works.
So she doesn't even know what you're doing.
No clue. No clue. And so I'm getting promoted on the CBS every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and my numbers are just going up. So like I'm out there hustling.
And what are they going up on? What was the thing at the time? Facebook?
Twitter was a big one.
Twitter.
That was probably like the biggest one at the time. Okay. I think we got around to like 70,000 followers. I started at 0.
Wow.
So 70,000 was a lot more.
That's
than
amazing.
That.
Yeah.
I think we got up to like 16,000 on YouTube, and then like maybe like 20 or 45 or something like that on Instagram. But I mean, that was at the time, like those were big numbers at the time.
For sure.
For social media being so new. So like that was sort of like the beginning of where I started in YouTube, truthfully, because pre that it was sort of like I started, but then I kind of
that doesn't count. Now, did you create a new channel or did you keep it?
Perhaps another big lesson.
Yeah.
And something that I would have never done again. I kept the same channel. And the reason why I would have never done that again is because I now know, 10 years later, is that the algorithm changes specifically based off of how old your channel is.
Yeah.
And there were times that YouTube actually changed the algorithm based off of like, if your channel was 10 years or older, it was supporting your back catalog, but not promoting your front one. And the problem was I was trying to rebrand. So I was trying to like promote the front catalog and I didn't care about the back one. And so like, but then it was always this like catch-22 where we were like, oh, but we're so far. Should we start over? Had I done it differently, what I would have done then is I just would have created 2 channels. But I didn't know at the time that it's like, it's free.
I mean, how could you?
Right. You
How could you? I honestly made that mistake way later, which is just like 6 months ago with this podcast. Because I had not, so my channel had like 40 million views, and I stopped posting for like 3 years.
Wow.
And then I started again with this podcast.
Wow.
And I'm like, Frank, why did you not? Now it's too late.
Right.
But I just created a new tab that was like, quite frankly, podcast.
Yeah.
And I upload them there, and it's fine. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But it would have been way more successful had I just created a new channel.
Did you hear that? You hear that, Ben? No one can see it, but my producer's right there.
Oh, because you have okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this.
You're launching a podcast, which
Yes.
by the time this airs, you will have just launched it.
Correct, yes.
So I'm assuming you're creating a new one?
Yeah, so we had this discussion at length.
That's hard at your level too, because you're at 1 million. You're like, I know I'll get eyes on it here.
Yeah. Here's what we finally came up with, what made the most logical sense. And this is what I would have done actually back in the day. I would have thought about it more like this, is that there is a tab, right, for podcasts. And so you can basically take advantage of your pre-existing subscribers, right, which is great if the content is like kind, right? And ours will be. But here's where we were like, nope, we're definitely going to do a new one. The content and the viewing audience for the content that we've developed over the last 10 years is specific to a demo that likes that kind of content.
What, like quick, satisfying?
It's just that they know that they like a science experiment, right? That is like fun and exciting, and it's like really big, it's crazy, we've never seen it before, it's novel. We have definitely gotten into things that are more like in the satisfying realm as of late. So we've sort of generated an audience, but then we started thinking, well, where's the podcast gonna go? And we were like, well, what if the podcast generates an audience that is not in line with those two things? So we said, all right, well, then here's the most logical path forward. We're gonna start it on its own channel. If it doesn't work and we're not getting the traction that we want, then we're just going to literally re-upload all of them all over again.
Okay,
back
smart.
Up on the
How
new
long will
tab.
you give it?
We're probably gonna give it I think we said 9 or 12 episodes. And we should know.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
We'll probably roughly speaking 3 to 4 months. And the reason why is because the podcast is set out for this reason.
Yeah.
There's so much that happens in science video production. So much. Because there is so much that you can't predict that happens on the set, on the scene, or that it's a learning that you would have never known. And so for those reasons, for example, I just went meteorite hunting in Odessa, Texas.
For the podcast? I mean, for the show?
For content for the YouTube channel. And there was so much learning in there that didn't make it to the short form content that's only 35 seconds. So now we have a podcast that we can basically extract that information and we can put that somewhere, which is, hey, we went meteorite hunting. Tell us about that experience. Easily, there is an hour's worth of stuff that we learned that couldn't make it to that 35-second video. And so that's sort of where the podcast is set and designed. So we thought too then, well, there's definitely things that I don't even make content about. I don't even make content about some of the stuff that I do in my own life. And so in the last 4 years, I've spent so much time developing a real estate portfolio because that was a family business.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, what if we start talking about that? And people really
so not
like
even
that.
science related.
Not even science related.
Wow.
So we started saying hey, what if we bud a whole new category of things that we're already doing, but we're just not showing people that we're doing on that channel because that's a set type of content. A good example is could you imagine if on Saturday Night Live one day they just started doing HGTV style content?
Right.
They'd be
right.
Wait a minute, what?
Such a good point when you put it that way.
Yeah, I came here for jokes. You're talking about flipping houses.
Yeah, wow.
They'd be unsubscribe, turn the channel.
Yeah.
So it's we're thinking about it the viewing base, who's going to actually want this? And if there does become a new audience, then then we want to make sure the algorithm is supporting that.
See, as I talk to you, because there are times where I struggle on the way over to a podcast where I'm like, why am I doing this interview? I did one at a barn, right? We're
cool.
talking to this, but she rescues animals.
That's awesome.
My whole channel is about health and spirituality. So
Sweet.
but as I'm talking to her, I'm starting to see how that does correlate. So as I talk to you about this path, I mean, there's somebody watching who might make spiritual content or health content, and they are afraid to do a podcast or they don't know where to start. So it still helps, but also as I think about luck, for example, versus hard work, what do you credit it to? Because yes, it was cool that you happened to be at Yale and meet the college humor people and whatever else, but you also said I was not going to go back to Ohio. So there was the hard work aspect of like putting yourself in those situations.
Yeah.
Right. Knowing, okay, I need to get my following up. I'm going to go on Big Brother, right? Like, how much of it do you think is luck and how much of it do you think is just your own hard work?
So for the record, I think I'm an incredibly naturally lucky person.
Okay.
Like if this is a simulation, okay, like my algorithm was like put in place by someone who was like having the best day of their life.
Wow.
Like
okay.
I'm a naturally lucky person by the algorithm of life, right?
And
like,
it could also be like really good karma. I mean, from my perspective.
No, true. Like whatever, and that is your, like this is your algorithm, right? This is your reality. And then it's absolutely correct. So like that, I'm going to set that off, right? Like I am unnaturally lucky, right? Just in general.
What's an example?
I can find 4-leaf clovers. Like if we went out there, I could find 4-leaf clovers. I'm serious. Like,
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. It's like, I can just do it. And so like, and if if there's like a lottery or whatever, something, like I'll be the dude who wins.
Wow. Do you play?
I should play the Mega Millions more often. Hey man, make a note of that. But so like for that reason, I carry that with me. Okay. I always carry that with me, that I am an unnaturally lucky person. Now, the science side of me though looks at luck very differently. There's a part of my brain that says, well, luck is a really interesting thing because we look at luck like this. Like there is some kind of like third party thing, energy, spirit, whatever, that is changing our outcome, right? But the analytical side of my brain looks at like it's your justification after something has already happened based off of chance alone. So for example, if I roll a dice a certain amount of times and I wanted snake eyes, right? Eventually, because the dice will allow snake eyes to happen, it will eventually happen, right? Is it lucky that it happened on the first one? Maybe. Is it lucky that it happened on the third or the fourth? Like it's really your perspective.
But if you do it 15 times, it's like at that point it might be more hard work and luck. But
your perspective might be, hey, that was lucky that I got it on the 15th. I was thinking that it was the 100th.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a weird example, right? Because it's like dice.
But it's a great example of perception. You know, on the way here, my friend was like, she's on her way to France like next week, and she's like, I just know France is going to be a significant moment. And I messaged her back and I said, every second of life is a significant moment.
Sure.
It's you projecting onto it that this is going to be significant, or this
100%.
is. But this moment, I'm talking to another human and we're looking into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
The chance that I got to be here and born and have this platform and you have a platform and we can talk, like that's significant.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I just really quickly want to tell you about the necklace that I'm wearing. You might see me wearing it in a lot of these episodes. I actually give it to many of the guests too. They're from Lila Quantum Technology, and as you can see, there are little capsules inside that are supercharged with what they call quantum energy. And it's just like walking around with one of the full-sized infinity blocks with you wherever you go. So you can get those on the website too and be quantumly upgraded wherever you go.
Like some people say like, I'm unlucky. And then they make micro trends that actually allow them to be unlucky. Because their perceived notion is like, well, I'm unlucky. I'm not going to play the game at the local fair or whatever, right, to win this like nonsense prize. But I'm like, I'm unnaturally lucky. I will play the game, right? And if I don't win, then I'm just like, I don't even think of it because I know I'm going to win later, right? So like I literally have this perception, but those perceptions actually create real actions. So like that concept of luck and hard work, I feel like is like a kind of an interesting thread through, because for this reason too. When you do work hard, right, you are aligning yourself with more potential throws of the dice. But okay, to sum this up, I think luck actually happens before the action. It sounds really weird, but
luck happens before the action, okay.
Because you are lucky or you are not, which then creates the micro actions that then lead to the result, which then is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because you're like, I'm not lucky, so you don't take the action. I'm lucky, I take the action. Oh my God, I won! So like it happens like over and over and over again.
Well, like you would know more than me about this, but that they can measure the energy of a thought too now.
I did not know that.
It's pretty amazing. Like they're like, even thoughts are energy.
So thoughts are things is a big Tony Robbins thing.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason why is because like if you think of like the electrical like passing through the synapses of the cell, right? That's what's happening. A thought is something that's actually tangibly happening in your brain. And so there's electrons moving all around. Well, that's a thing, right? It's not invisible. It's not nothing. Like the electrons actually move from one side to another. Like
yeah.
And so like there was an physical end result of that happening. So yes, thoughts are things.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I have a okay. So actually, our sponsor is this company called Lila Quantum, right? So I have the way I use the block that they have is not the way it's supposed to be used. Where people like they'll put their water in there and it actually like restructures the water, things like that. That's what their little like actual third-party testing that shows that. I use it by writing intentions or things that I want. I put them in there because I'm like, well, now it's in the quantum field. So I actually was thinking as you were describing, I'm like, I'm gonna write, I'm unnaturally lucky.
Yeah.
I put that in there.
You should.
But I actually brought you one of their necklaces because this is like having one on you at all times.
Do we get 10% by the way?
I think you do. I don't even have a code, but
No. I mean, of your unnatural luck.
Oh yeah, true.
Dude, can we get any luckier? God, this is
so cool, right?
This is gonna blow up the matrix.
And they actually used to have it on like they would give you like a yarn chain.
Can I wear this now?
Yeah, please. And they saw me wearing it as gold, so then they created gold necklaces.
Is this gonna mess up the continuity at all, or?
No, it's fine.
Sweet.
It's probably gonna make it better.
Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you would appreciate the science of this. I'm just like, I don't know, it works, you know? Like they actually, so they have a little capsule that looks like this, and they were like, put it in your block, and it's gonna actually make it a lot more powerful. And I was like, yeah, whatever, send it and I'll try it. And I did. For a week, I couldn't sleep at all. And I sleep like a baby. And I couldn't sleep. My roommate came out, housemate, and came out and saw me on the living room at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And was like, you can't sleep either? I'm like, yeah, we both never have an issue sleeping. So then I was like, I don't know why. And I put my water in there the next day to charge it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if it has anything to do with me boosting it. And then I read on it and it says, you might have trouble sleeping for a week. It was like exactly what it said it would do.
Whoa.
So I don't know the science, I don't know how all this stuff works, but it's pretty incredible.
All right,
so that's
well,
Lila.
Here's the new test that we're doing for our short form content.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear this for a week, and then we're gonna see what happens.
Ooh, that'd be good.
Yeah, so we're gonna do it. Like,
and then you'll explode it and dip it in some
this is
elephant toothpaste.
I'm actually really like, we're gonna test it. Like,
That's really cool.
We're gonna make a video about it.
Oh, they're gonna love that.
Dude, for sure.
Thank you
this
for
is
that.
sick.
Cool.
Thank you. I honestly didn't know about this, but this is like literally perfect.
Yeah, it just reminded me when you were saying I'm unnaturally lucky because I'm like, I literally am gonna put that when I get home into my block and see if it makes me a little more lucky.
That's right. So the thing about hard work, right? Because I think people confuse this, right? They're like, oh, like luck and hard work are not at odds with each other, right? They're not even on the same like playing field. Like it's not a teeter-totter. It's not like, oh, like, you know, a lot of luck, don't have to work hard. It's
Such
like
a good point.
we're on separate planes, I feel like, because when you do work hard, all you're really doing is you're aligning yourself up for more rolls of the dice. And so the more rolls of the dice, the more lucky you will become because you will actually have had more chances in order to have the end result that you so choose. So I feel like that's why like hard work is more like you're putting your foot down on the gas pedal, like you're gonna cover more ground. So if you wanna see more of your vacation, go faster, right? Like go faster on the highway. You'll see more.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean necessarily that like you didn't see the right things, right? Like maybe you'll see more if luck is this is a weird analogy, but like if luck is seeing as many deer on your journey as possible, but then you put your foot on the gas pedal and you go as fast as possible, you'll probably see more deer. So the chance of that happening is going to be higher.
It's so funny you say that because when you said if you put your gas on the pedal, my first thing was like you'll miss more deer because you're going so fast.
There's one. Holy shit.
But if you had just taken the time and went slow, you would have seen more. Like that's so funny how like different, like see perception.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah, because if you go too slow, you'll never see any. You can never see any at all.
That'd
be like rolling the dice one time and be like, I'm not lucky.
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So how much of this do you think is like? Because I wrote this down, thinking about it. A mindset shift. Like, was there any moment where you had a mindset shift within yourself or something where you noticed a difference? So just for people to know, because we haven't even talked about it yet, you just hit 1 million on YouTube.
Yeah.
You've been on a successful Netflix show that you hosted for 3 seasons. Like, you've done so much. Was there a moment where you were like, I don't know, not seeing the result you wanted and you had a mind shift?
I am so lucky. This happened when I was so young. So young. So if we go like way before all of this, I was roughly speaking 14, 15 years old. And so I had two older brothers and I'm the youngest and they were into sports and my middle brother got into wrestling. And so as the youngest brother, right, he would come back home from practice and he'd be like, hey, I learned this new thing, and like put me in a half Nelson, and I'd be like, ah, like, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I need to basically learn wrestling in order to like defend myself in this household, right? So I got into wrestling, and I was just good enough because I had gotten in so early that every different chapter of wrestling, I was just a little tiny bit better than everyone else. So I got put on like the better team, like A team, B team, varsity, junior, right?
Yeah.
So like 7th grade, I was on A team when you're supposed to be on B team, right? And then freshman year, I was on varsity immediately, right? Like, and so what happened then is it compounded the success in a very short amount of time. And in my sophomore year, I qualified for the state tournament. Now, just for like frame of reference, in Ohio, Division I, qualifying for the state tournament is very similar to like the same goal that anyone would set to like go to the Olympics. Like it's so difficult, it's so hard, and everybody always says like, I'm gonna go to the state tournament, right? It's like, it's the same goal for everyone. So my coach at the time, Dominic Sabato, said, you're going to go to the state tournament and like you're gonna place. And I was like, dude, like you're high. Like everyone says that. Like it's literally like the same thing as people being like, I'm gonna be a famous rock star. They're like, okay,
wow,
right?
Yeah.
But I had a coach and I had someone who believed in me. And him and his staff pushed us so hard that by my senior year, I did in fact place 4th.
Wow.
And it like shocked my mind into being like, I thought this was impossible 4 years ago.
Wow, yeah.
In 4 years, which is long but not like super long, I went from literally thinking something was truly impossible, to it being done. It was done. I did it.
Jeez.
And so that, from like 18 years old, moving forward, I just kept replicating that script, which was, it is impossible now. I will draft the plan that will force me into doing it. I will do that plan. It will be unnaturally difficult. And then I will eventually see the success. I will mine that success in that direction. And then I will eventually get the end result because I will do anything that I need to in order to get that end result. Because it's exactly what I did in wrestling. So I've just applied that exact same mindset and that same methodology to everything. Med school, right? Or not med school, but pre-med, then to early days entertainment, then to the 10 years of doing YouTube, and then even all the way up to getting to be on a Netflix show. Like, it's the same mindset over and over and over again.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to just clip that because people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Seriously.
It's not, like the thing that like if you were to look at my mentality before that 14, 15 years old, I always thought there was those people and then me, right? There's those people who are like the winners and like they have good voices, and like that seemed like there was this sort of like artificial barrier where it was like, that's for them. And whatever that is, isn't for me. And so I'm just like everyone else, and I'm gonna have a very mediocre life. Like, and then after that, like that one moment in time placing in States, I was like, no, everything is for me. Everything in the buffet is for me, and I'm allowed to eat anything here.
Whoa.
And so it really like became like saying I can do anything is a little too like obtuse, but it was more or less like I have the capacity to do anything.
And at that age, you're right. Because I think like what you described of thinking, well, that's them, not me. That's the majority of people.
Yeah.
And I actually like, my friends are like, because I'm so extroverted naturally, but I've become an introvert in the sense that I'm like purposely not hanging out with that many people because I don't want to be programmed anymore. Because when I realized how programmed I was, and this was like 3 years ago, I was like, I'm never gonna do that again. Put myself around people what it was like, I didn't want to make people uncomfortable or call them out. So I wouldn't be like with a friend I told you on the way here, I was like, actually every moment in life is special, or significant. Because I was like, I'm not going to be programmed. Let me correct that. Because in the past, I would have been like, yeah, you're right. It is going to be, I'm sure. Like, just to be nice and to like, now I'm like, I don't care if I'm like ruffling feathers and making someone uncomfortable. I'm like, actually, like, no, it's not. I'm going to like, I'm not going to allow myself to get programmed, Yeah. So I immediately call it out now. But to learn that at that age.
It's a really good point, because what that does is like that crafts the environment to put you in that best position in order to achieve success, or whatever that looks like, or whatever the goal is that you set to do. When you're not in the right place well, first of all, put it this way. You can't ever, get the thing if you're not in the right place at the right time. But it won't happen at all if you're not in the right place.
Yes, you put yourself in there.
You have to be there.
Yeah.
So by surrounding yourself with the right people, you're putting yourself in the right place.
Yeah.
Then eventually it will become the right time. And so like, I think that's like, you're right, in a sort of like super over socialized society with like social media, and like we do things to like not ruffle feathers in order, especially in entertainment, right?
For sure.
In this industry, like,
because the first thing anybody asks is, are they nice?
Right.
Yeah. Like anytime I used to do these A-list interviews, and like, Nicole Kidman or someone, and everyone would be like, was she nice?
Yeah.
It's like the first thing they want to know.
They want to know, is this a normal person?
Yeah.
Like, are they cool?
Yeah.
Are they chill?
Yeah.
So you're right. It's like, it's hard to navigate. But yeah, like, you're defending your quadrant of life, right? So by who and what you are allowing into your zone, because if thoughts are things, right? That's an intrusive, like, you don't want that thought in your mind. Like, hey, look, that's negativity that I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like, keep that out.
Yeah.
And so you're auto-correcting, basically.
Yeah.
Which honestly, like, that takes strength. So you're cultivating a life that you want. And so you shouldn't ever really, like, apologize for that.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And it's so important. Like, I have Mike Posner on the show in next week, and one thing that I heard him say recently that I really like, and I want to talk to him about, is he was like, when I decided I was going to walk across America, because he walked from like one end to the other, right? He's like, everybody in the music industry was like, this is career suicide. Like, this is going to kill your music career. And he was like, I'm so glad I did it, because it was the craziest thing, but it was like the best experience of my life. And so even now, like when I think about like, I should have these kinds of people on the show, I should be doing, like, I know what to do to get millions of more views or whatever else. But I'm like, but I don't want to. Like, I don't want to chase a trend. I want to, like, I'm here to enliven people and talk to the people I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Because selfishly, this show is just people I want to talk to. No, seriously, you know what I mean?
It, dude.
Like the thing that
awesome.
I want to watch. Like when I created a health conference for 3 years, and we had like Deepak Chopra and Dave Asprey and all these amazing people on the show.
Yep.
I mean, as our speakers, I was like, I'm just creating a conference that I want to go to.
I wear the True Dark, by the way.
Do you? They're so good. Yeah.
I
I wear them at night, and then I have like a sexier pair from another brand for the day.
I was just talking about. I was like, dude, the problem is with the one with the True Dark ones is like you look like Cyclops.
Totally. I mean, they work the best, but they're like so unsexy.
Totally go around.
Yeah. I wear those at night.
They look like welding glasses.
Yeah, they do.
I'm a huge Mike Posner fan of him personally.
Same.
I love his music.
Same.
I was at Coachella, and I heard him talk about this on stage.
Was he there at like this last one?
No, this was 2 years ago,
Okay.
I think. And he was talking about going, he climbed Everest. I thought that was so cool, so fascinating, that I actually started my own trajectory to climb Everest.
Wow. Because of that?
Because of that.
Is that the video that you have coming out soon?
So...
Oh, no, that's Kilimanjaro. What about?
No, that's the start.
Okay.
So here's what happened. All right, hey, let's go back.
See how it all comes together?
Let's go back to that wrestling stuff, right?
Yeah.
The part of it is the plan, right? So you can't ever place states or whatever. You can't be this achievement thing if you don't have a plan, right? So the plan was, I was like, well, if I'm going to reverse engineer this, I need to know somebody who has climbed Everest before. So I was in this group, and there's a guy named Bo Parfait who has climbed Everest. So I said, I'm going to start with Bo. I said, Bo, at the time I was like 37 or whatever. I'm 37, I'm very healthy. Like, walk me through how does one climb Everest as safely as possible with the least amount of like risk. He was like, okay. And so he walked me through like on a 3.5 hour conversation how you climb Everest. He goes,
wow.
You first start with a lower mountain, right? And I was like, okay, I've done they're called 14ers. He goes, then you're gonna wanna go to Kilimanjaro. Then after Kilimanjaro, you go to Aconcagua. Then you go to Cho Oyo, which is the 6th largest, but it's very similar to Everest, but it's a really slow and steady ascent. You get comfortable with the death zone. If you can handle all those 3, then you go to Everest. Wow. Mike Posner did not do that, but him and I are very different in that.
Right, you're like gonna plan.
Yeah.
I think he's more like me, like the creative, like whatever. You're more like logic and sense, but it's great, by the way. That's so good.
Yeah. So I'm doing in June.
Okay.
Which is about it's a couple months away. I'm going to go to Peru. And I'm going to go to the Peruvian climbing school, mountaineering school, to learn how to basically become more of a what they call like a skill climber. So it's like with crampons and like how to go down into crevasses. And we're going to do a couple 18,000 peaks. And then after that, I'm doing Aconcagua.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And you're going to record that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, and it was all because of Mike Posner at Coachella.
He's going to love that. I'm going to tell him. Thank you for that. Wow.
It's funny too because he always tells people on podcasts, he's like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Really?
Don't do it. Yeah. And I'm like, I know.
You're like, but I'm unnaturally lucky.
But I'm unnaturally lucky, bro. So just let me do it, dude. So yeah. But I like, and I'll tell you why I was so fascinated by it. So Mike Posner, like I've always listened to his music, right? And it's like it feels like now I've integrated myself into the industry, right, of entertainment, right? Like when you see yourself on a Netflix show, like this is not me being like, I'm so awesome, but you're like, I'm on the thing now.
That's a peak. That's a peak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I'm in it. Like I'm in the thing now. And so I was talking to my friend Brazil about this, and I was like, Brazil, and we were at Coachella together, and I was like, dude, I was at this tent and we were listening to Barbara Streisand, and then like that song, like Barbara Streisand, and it was Duck Sauce. And so then Mike Posner comes on, and I was like, dude, people in the industry, like in our industry that we're all connected in, like they're doing things that I like naturally would want to do, but they're talking about them now. And so I was like, that's rad. I felt like, this sounds so weird, but I felt like Mike Posner was giving me permission in this industry as like, monkey see, monkey do, to be like, hey, yeah, go do some crazy fun shit. And
but he's like, also though like an anomaly, I think, because there are some, I don't even know if I can, well, yeah, whatever, like massive A-list celebrities who have gone to like my astrologer off my recommendation, or have done ayahuasca based on my recommendation, like things like that, and actually go to the places I tell them to go, but I've never seen them talk about it.
Interesting.
So it is interesting because it's like I screened an episode of the podcast today that's coming out later, and I was talking about how my last TV interview ever was with Lizzo. Oh, wow. And how in that moment I remember just sitting across from her and being like, I'll never do this again. Like I'm quitting.
Really?
And it was nothing to do with her. She's amazing. But I remember I like told the person in the episode, I was like, but I wanted to talk about aliens. I want to talk about and what I said in that is like, I'm sure she does too. Like they do this because they have to for work, but they want to talk about
other things,
like the stuff they're watching is like aliens and ayahuasca and this stuff too. It's not part of the job to promote that, you know?
Yeah, because it's, exactly. Like,
I do energy work. I do energy healing, right? There are senators that come to me. And I'm like, I know that senator on TV has crystals in his pocket. I can tell you what crystals he has. You know what I mean? But you will never know that.
Dude, I did this breath work thing with I don't know what it's called, but where they hit the bowl. Okay,
yeah.
What's that?
The gong or the sound bowl?
Like a sound bowl.
Okay, yeah.
What's that called? Sound bowl?
There are sound bowls, but it's like more like this.
Yeah, this had water in it. Maybe it was that too.
Yeah, there are sound bowls with water.
And we did the breath work.
Yeah.
And okay, this is crazy, right? So we did the breath work, and it's where you like basically go. I'm gonna probably get this wrong, but like I think it's called like hypoxia, but like you're doing the breath work to where you're basically like you're seeing visions.
Yeah,
right?
I did this in Mexico. There's an amazing, in Spain. There's but he's Mexican. Amazing guy that does that. But you go in the water, underwater, and then you go up. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
So in my vision, I was climbing Mount Everest.
Wow.
It was so crazy, and I was like, what? And so like when I came back to or whatever, I was like, that's wild. Because really, what you're doing is like through breath work, you're essentially getting to a state in which maybe I'm screwing this up, and I don't really know, but this is my assumption, is that you're allowing your brain to not have as much oxygen, so it goes to like a different state of what it can like perceive and see. So it's almost like in a way like you're deep daydreaming, or because you're still awake, you're conscious, but you're like your visions are way more intense. It feels like an awake dream. Yeah. And so I just remember being like, wow, like that's where my subconscious went, was like, you're on Mount Everest. And I was like, that's cool.
I mean, there's so many different versions of breathwork too. Yeah. There are some that are meant to relax you, put you to sleep even. There are some that can actually create DMT in the body. So that you'll have like a plant medicine experience on breathwork. Yeah, it's remarkable. But your body, like that's why I actually stopped doing plant medicine, is I realized through the like working one-on-one with a guru, like with Sadhguru and like Shri Shri Ravi Shankar, is what your body can actually do. Yeah. Because they used to tell me like, plant medicine, like do Bhava Spandana. It's like this like practice. And I'm like, and I'd get so annoyed with them because I'm like, they don't know. Like plants are the way, plants are the way. And after working with them, I realized like, wow, you know, we have it in us already.
Yeah, your
The
body
yogis
can
knew.
produce most
Yeah.
of the things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're orally ingesting or
Yeah,
whatever.
totally. So you mentioned the success of the the Netflix show.
Yeah.
But you're not coming back for season 4.
Correct.
I know, like, you already just talked about that on your podcast.
Yeah.
But why? What was going on there?
Yeah, man. So, to sum it all up, I mean, we go super far deep on the first episode of the podcast.
And we don't have to go that far here, but just
like why? But essentially, is like I learned so much. I've never been in the role of a host in this particular area because I came from the background of being a content creator. So I've always been involved in the creative process. In fact, everything I've ever made as a host prior to that really was something that I had creative in. I like created it myself.
Yeah.
And so I had, up until that point, I had hosted things that I was not involved in, but they were very short. It was like very small things. But the majority, 99% of my career, I had a creative hand in. And at a point in the show, I really wanted to be involved in the creative of it because I felt like I'd actually already been participating in the creative of it while I was on set. And the production company just really didn't want that. They really did not want me to be as creatively involved as I wanted to be, but I also offered up a lot of like my social media sort of like, hey, like we're doing so well in social media, like maybe we could do a collaboration with like the show and like we could do glass stuff. By the way, like total tangent, glass stuff does do really well. We have a video that has 64 million views on our channel right now. So like I was right, by the way.
Wow.
And so, but that was like not what they wanted. And like, I look at it now, like having sort of like learned through more of like where I was at the time and looking back, that like that production company, that's not their model, right? My model and their model were totally different. And I was trying to smash learned that there was a season 4 based off of a casting post on Instagram. So like when that happens, that's when you know you're on the outer circle.
Wow.
And so I just knew it.
Jeez.
I was like, oh, this is it. That's I'm not in.
Yeah.
And like I actually even reached out and I tried to basically like present myself to try to get back in on the swing of things.
Oh, wow, you did?
Oh, I did, yeah.
So you totally didn't have like an ego about it. You were like,
I did.
I shouldn't say totally, but yeah.
I will admit, like, I definitely had an ego, like, at some point. That was, like, season 2. I put my foot in my mouth, right, at the end of that. I came back knowing that I had to squash my ego. I admitted it. I literally said, like, yo, I am sorry. I was, like, out of line professionally. Like, you know, I'm, like, literally coming back on it. But then, like, season 4, I even went as far to be like, hey, I will still... And they were like, nah, we good. So that was it. And so, and like, I honestly, like, I just try to put myself in their shoes, right?
Yeah.
As a production company. And they're like, what would be the easiest path forward? They're like, maybe if we just find someone like him, that's just going to be easier. Or maybe wants it more, right? Based in what they saw. And so like, from me, I will defend my actions in the sense of like, it came from an area of wanting to do more with them, make the product better, be more involved with the contestants, like, because I loved that part of it. But I can see how that could totally, you know, and I'm guessing for them, so I don't really know.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
I just would say that, like, yeah, if I were them, I would have been like, you know what, like, you know.
But you know what's interesting is like, you can hire a host, right? And it's just like going to be like a Ryan Seacrest who's like charming and fun and whatever else. Or you hire a content creator because you're like, well, we want that sauce. Like
right.
they know how to make videos, they know what goes viral.
Yep.
And I would think like that would be the reason to hire a content creator.
So what's interesting is that they hired me originally because of my background in reality TV, but also my expertise in science. So the host, the initial like call for the host, they wanted something unique. They didn't want just a regular host. But the issue was that the show was originally formatted for television, for Canadian television. And then it was going to be like kind of like a repost for Netflix. But then it took off on Netflix, and so they expanded the time in which the episodes could go so they could breathe more naturally. Because just as a standard of production, the way that it works, you have 10 contestants, so you have way more story at the top, and then when you get down to 2, you have to like kind of scrap for a storyline. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to make it all format 22 minutes, which is the standard for a 30-minute episode for TV. So like it actually fit way better to be a Netflix show. So, but the problem with that though is like, because I came in with like the science expertise, there was no room for it. It was like so condensed for TV that they were like, hey, they're like, You know, hey, that's cool that you're going to come in with these science facts, but like literally there's no room for it.
Yeah.
So then when we got the expanded season, which was season 2, we'd already done it in a certain way that was kind of more like formal hosting. You know, hi, I'm Nick Uhas and I'm going to set it up and this kind of stuff. But then I also found that the role of just being the guy who like pushes it along and then is very empathetic to the contestants, that then became my role, which then had nothing to do with science.
Right, yeah.
like,
that's a weird position to be in.
Yeah, so like
Yeah. I get it though. I get both sides. I get what you're saying.
I wasn't needed for that anymore. It could have been anybody based off of how it ended up.
Right, yeah. Okay, all right. Well, how are you feeling about it now? Because you know, this is a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And like, in 6 months, you might be, if I ask you again, it would be a completely different thing.
100%. So there's something that we talk about internal to our company a lot, and we talk about closing the loop, right? And if this goes actually all the way back to the wrestling part, right? So like my freshman year, I didn't win a single match. My sophomore year, there's a big leap, right? I learned a lot. I went to the state tournament, but I only won one match. My junior year, I went, it's called like 1-2 or something like that. Like you have a losing record, so you don't place. But then my senior year, think about like how much information I'd stacked. Now I know the training protocol, I know what the state tournament's gonna be like, I know how I need to do it. And then also there's an unnatural weighted advantage when you're a senior because now you're wrestling kids that are younger than you, who don't have as much experience, right? So it's weighted towards you. And I feel like in career stuff, even in entertainment, this also happens, right? So now what we're looking towards is like, hey, look, what did I really want? I really wanted to be involved in the creative and to host a long form show. So now it's like, I'm in my senior year as far as like having an unnatural weighted advantage. I've hosted a Netflix show. I've had 10 years of creating content. Now the next step is, instead of, waiting for the next show to come around, even though I am really lucky, is to create it on our own.
Yeah.
Close the loop is what we say. Like, you've gone 3 quarters, do the last quarter, you're closing the loop.
So smart. And then you're coming in as a producer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because from the beginning, you know, hey, I've pitched this concept.
Yeah.
I know all about it. I'm going to be a part of the creative, the executive team. I'm going to host it. I'm going to look at the edits. I have an idea. I'm going to be a piece of that pie, but I'm going to be the piece that I want to be.
Mm-hmm. God, that resonates. I mean, this is the podcast is what it is. You know? Because I was like, I'd rather, instead of go and find a show and do a show, but I'm doing stuff I don't care about, I want it to be my thing,
Yeah.
And like, I will say, like, I shot a full Bravo show that never made air.
No way!
It was like 2 years ago. And it was insane because like now I'm so grateful it didn't happen.
Interesting.
So grateful because I would have been embarrassed about it today.
I see.
I would have totally been embarrassed about it.
Hey man,
today.
there were some things that we did that we never put out there.
Really?
Actually, fun fact, I got hired for this reality TV show before Big Brother that was supposed to be like a guy on an island with all of his exes.
Whoa, that's actually a good idea.
And I didn't do it last minute. And then the show got like sued or something, and then like they never aired.
Wow.
And it was like a travesty for like everybody.
Wow.
And then I wouldn't have been able to do Big Brother because I would have had a non-compete. And so sometimes, following your intuition is like the best thing you can do.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so last thing I want to ask, I know we're going to do a little science experiment, but right before we do, can you tell me your morning routine and how it changed your life?
Yes, dude. So this is something, okay, so like I'm a very much like a creature of habit, right? So back, this is an interesting time. I don't want to bring all this new information, but I inherited a ton, living, by the way, like my parents were still alive, and a ton of real estate.
Whoa, I didn't know that. But you know what? My last question, and I just decided not to, was thanks to Ben, your producer, I was like, is there anything I should ask about that he wouldn't know? I'm asking was real estate.
This is perfect because
I like that you're tying it into the morning routine. I just thought I was going too far, so I was not going to ask it.
So I inherited all this real estate.
Okay.
But I inherited it when I was really young. I was like 18 years old.
Now, why did you inherit it when your parents were still alive?
So there was a Bush era tax credit that was going to basically expire. So my parents were like, hey, like let's do it now so that the inheritee does not have to pay for this.
So smart. Your parents are smart.
They're teachers.
Oh God, yeah.
So both parents were teachers, career teachers. So my dad did it when I was really young because he was like, hey, like one day when you're much older, like, and you take on this project, like you won't have to pay all this tax essentially. So they were operators, right? They operated the business. Now, what ended up happening is like as time went on, because they were operators, they were doing it themselves. And so as they got older and older and older, their energy, they were not able to keep pace with the amount of work that they were doing when they were in their 30s. So I didn't know it because I had no hand in this, right? Like I just was going to be the person at some time in the future was going to take over this operation. But unfortunately, my father had a stroke, and then another stroke, and then a very severe one. So in the windfall of those problems, I did not know at all how to operate this business. And so overnight, I learned that I was...
How old were you?
I was 35-ish.
Okay.
So yeah, 35. I learned that I was in 2 different courts in 2 different cities, and that there was a fine that was rolling close to $250,000, and that I was probably not going to be able to ever pay that unless I started working on the units, but the units were 30 days away from being seized. So I was like in what I would describe as the ultimate pickle. So what I did is I realized, like, because it was so, like, dude, if someone dropped that on you, like, you're like stunned. Like, you're so shell-shocked that you almost think it's fake. You're like, where are the cameras? Where's Ashton, right? Like, it's like, it was so shocking that I was like, this can't be real. But then when I realized and I got all the information and I was like, oh no, this is real. This really happened. Like, this is how it all panned out. I had to change every aspect of my life in order to survive this time frame because I was so dedicated in order to make sure that the family business did not crumble and that it was going to excel under my watch. So what I did is I changed my whole day. And so I realized that I would have to be so ultra efficient that I would have to start so early and I'd have to go through a morning ritual that would basically take what my normal day was and crunch it into such a tiny little amount of time in the morning that I would then be able to do the rest of the day and focus mostly on real estate while still managing an expanding career. And so it's called the Savers Method. So Hal Elrod wrote a book totally about it, and he did a fantastic job. So I don't even really want to butcher it. Just would highly recommend like looking at that, reading that book.
Wow, I'm gonna get that. Yeah.
He was in a really bad car accident, and then he developed the method by basically finding the things that have worked throughout time. And so it's an acronym, SAVERS, and it's basically like...
Is it SAVERS?
Correct.
Like the full word? Okay.
And like the S stands for like scribing, so it's the same thing as like journaling. One of them is, I'm gonna screw this up, but it's like meditation, affirmations, scribing, visualization, which is the V in there. And so it's things that people are already doing, right? Things that people...
But make it structured.
But it's structured.
Yeah.
And you do it every morning. And the reason why it works so well is because it keeps your goals and your intentions top of mind. We forget so fast and so easy that like even on a quarterly basis, you're like, man, that's right. I wanted to do that. What happened to that? Oh, that's right. I went to Coachella. Now I'm climbing Everest. So like you forget so fast that by doing a morning ritual and having your posted goals and your affirmations, you say them out loud, right? Like it keeps your super short-term vision on a very long-term basis. So in that time frame, by the way, now that we're 4 years later, just to give facts and figures, the portfolio at the time was like around, like if I were to sold everything and liquidated everything and paid every fine and just done my got out of jail free, I probably would have ended up with like maybe a couple $100,000, right?
Okay.
Now it's worth $5 million.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And that's not just because over time real estate gets more valuable.
It's because I put my nose to the grindstone. Wow. I read every single book. I reached out to every single person. I learned what I could. I took the risks that I could. I performed like I needed to, and I never let up on it. And I also made sure that like during that whole process that my actual business itself was also functioning because I couldn't stop one for the other. So I couldn't fully do one. I had to do both at the same time. Coming back to Mike Capetta, who used to work on Deadliest Catch.
Yes.
He was on Wild Bill's boat, and he said that one of the sayings was that you have to do everything all at once. That was like a saying on the boat, I guess. And Mike told me that at the beginning of this whole thing. And so I remember that through the whole time. I was like, yeah, look, sometimes if like the engine's on fire, but the front of the boat's taking on water, unfortunately, you just have to take care of both. Like you're not allowed to just be like,
this is such a lesson for me and probably for everybody listening because like I'm such a creature of comfort. I love comfort. So I'm
Everyone seeks
right
comfort.
now I'm working on the podcast and my book. So I canceled every conference I was speaking at this year.
Right.
And that's like where I get all my clients. Cancel that. And I'm like, okay, podcast, book. Then next year I'll work on this, and then I'll work on that.
Yeah.
And so like, that's how you have like these 10-year goals, because you're like, I'm not gonna do it all now,
right.
But why not? And I've learned from the people that I interview. I had on the show recently, like Princess Martha, and she's the Princess of Norway, and and her fiance Shawn Mendurik, and like, I had asked them to be on the podcast like 3 months before.
Wow. And
they were like, yeah, we'll get to it, whatever. I got an email, and they're like, hey, Princess Martha's in town. Can you do the podcast in an hour? And I was like, what? And I had like a face mask on. I was in my robe. Like, so like I called the crew, like, can you come, But I'm like, that's how they work, where they're like, let's just do now. Like, they're not waiting or planning. They're like, do it all now.
Yeah.
So, and now this lesson's coming back. It keeps coming back. So thank you for that.
It's hard because like on the other side of that coin, right, is you don't want to spread yourself too thin because there's this other thing that's like, you want to go, spread yourself too thin. You want to go an inch a mile. I'm going to screw this whole thing up. But basically it's like, if you do just a little bit of everything, you're never getting the full value out of anything that goes
so true. It's
mile
like
deep
digging many
wide.
holes. Actually, my astrologer told me this because I was like, I have so many different practices, which now the book I'm writing is to help people build a daily routine, which is why
Sweet.
I asked you about that. It's more of a spiritual routine, but not really, not only.
They can be very simple. I mean,
totally,
they're a functional and spiritual one, they can be almost the
totally.
same.
I mean, even the food that you eat and the type of water you drink is part of it.
Yeah.
Because that affects your spirituality. But, go ahead.
So the rental property thing, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So like that has now become such, it was like trauma bonding with something that like, I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. There was like, maybe like 4 weeks where I was like, I'm good. I never want to touch it again. But then after those 4 weeks, what I realized is I was like, well, wait a minute. Like I spent 4 years of my life like doing this thing. So now I have this asset. I actually understand how this works now. Like not the asset of itself, but like the mental asset. I actually know how this works. Well, I'm way ahead of everyone else now. So like, what if I just kept going? Like, what if I started buying my own rental property, right? Like, which I always wanted to do, but I was kind of like, oh, dude, I'm like so burned out on that I was like, meh. So I literally only sat on my heels for like 4 weeks.
And then like you're back in it.
We already bought our new
That's
property.
so cool.
Yeah, we just closed like a month ago.
So did your brothers do this as well?
So my oldest brother is my half brother, so it's different dads. So it was like two totally different things.
Okay.
And then my middle brother, we all worked on those units all together.
Okay.
Growing up.
Got it. Okay.
So basically we were the workers for the family business. So that's actually how I knew how to do all the science stuff. Was I actually knew how to operate with all these tools because I was doing drywall, plumbing, roofing, electrical. So like those kinds of engineering tools, that's not really engineering, but like how to operate them to create stuff, I was very familiar with.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, like how does a vise work? Or I installed that. Like I knew how to put that on.
So cool.
Yeah.
And thanks for, I literally, as you were talking, I emailed myself Saber's method.
Yeah, dude,
to remember to look it up tonight.
So the Saber's method allowed me to get through that time frame because it structuralized the chaos.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard to like go into the chaos willingly, even though there may be good results. I think the enjoyment of life can definitely come from the part that is not in chaos, right? Because you're always saying you're seeking comfort. And so there is definitely a joy to life where you are.
But also like beyond. For me though, it's too much. Like it's what a normal person would consider comfort would be like a day at the beach.
Right.
For me, it's like an hour in the hyperbaric chamber, 2 hours of meditation. I went and got stem cell injections, and then I got a facial, and then I'm in my robe in the hot. Like my days are, I've lived such a comfortable life. You know what I mean? But it's like extreme.
That's great.
To the point where I'm also like, it's time now. I think what it was is I was so burned out from all the days at news that when I left for the last 3 years, I've just been extreme vacation mode for 3 years. And now I'm realizing like maybe I need to just go back a little bit to what it was.
Dude, honestly, sometimes that's what it takes, dude. Like sometimes it takes so much like, I don't want to say healing, but like, if you stretch something out back
but
and
part
forth,
of it is healing, yeah.
Yeah, it requires that amount of time in order to like get that mental bandwidth back where you're like, I'm ready to like go back into the fire.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just forget about it, right?
Yeah.
You forget how bad it was.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's do some science.
Sweet, yeah, dude.
And I love that you chose this. It's perfect for a podcast.
Yeah, so this one's really cool. The reason why I like this so much, and like this is actually really tough to get off. Actually, if you hold the bottom there,
Yep.
so we're gonna like turn them like, there we go.
Got it.
Yep. So this gas, so have you ever like sucked in helium?
No.
Have you never done like?
I mean, I would see people do it, and I remember trying once, and I was like, I don't know how to do this.
Okay. So helium is much, much lighter than air, right?
Yeah.
Air is mostly nitrogen. It's like 80-20. There's a bunch of other like gases in there, but this gas, sulfur hexafluoride, is roughly speaking 5 times more dense than air. So there's a different property with the way that sound waves propagate through a gas than how they propagate through solids.
Oh, wow.
So we're gonna do the demo first, and then I'm gonna explain.
Even just that, I never, like when we see these things, we never think, why is it doing that?
Right.
And now that makes sense. Like sound actually travels differently through
Correct.
the air as it is now
Yes.
than it would through that.
Correct.
Wow.
So the way that sound travels through the table is different than the way it travels through a liquid and how it travels through
Very interesting.
a gas.
Yeah, like through a table, it might reverberate, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you exactly how it works. It's
Okay,
kind of
okay.
cool. Let's see if this one, let's make sure that. Okay, so the key to this to make it really work is like, and by the way, just so everybody knows, this is an inert gas. What that means is that it's roughly the equivalent of nitrogen, meaning like there's no diffusion across your lungs. It's like a filler gas, so like it doesn't do anything, which is actually what it's used for, technically speaking. They actually fill rooms and other areas so that it prevents arcing. So this is used a lot in like high voltage electricity. They'll fill like sort of transformer boxes with it.
To do what?
So it does not allow electricity to go through, like as a medium, this will not allow electricity to go through.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it prevents electricity from jumping from like one wire to another.
Right, yeah.
So the key though on this is you really want to inhale it. Like don't put it in your mouth, but like really inhale it. Like not so much in your stomach, but like really take it in. Now it is denser, so it's gonna feel weird. Okay. So yeah, and then once it's inhaled, then you want to talk with it, and I don't want to ruin it, but you'll feel it.
All right. I thought it was going to be like chipmunk voice, but I have a feeling now it's different.
So that's what helium does, which is, so by the way, helium.
Oh, right.
Helium is 6 times less dense than air, and this is 5 times more dense than air. And you can really do it quick. That's perfect.
Hello. Oh my God. Wow. You're watching the Quite Frankly podcast with Nick Uhas. I sound like a villain.
Yeah.
Whoa, wow. Okay.
And it's a real voice. Like, isn't that?
You have to do it now.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is cool. How long is it gonna last? Oh my God!
It's gone.
Yeah, okay, so the reason why this actually works is it's so crazy, because it sounds fake, but you talk at the same time, so they know that it's not editing. Say
Okay,
something.
so it's not editing.
See, it's not editing, right? 'Cause it's not a dub. So the way this really works, this is fascinating, but like, so the denser that the gas is, with the sound waves that actually propagate through it travel slower. So that in editing, it's like the same thing, right? When you speed something up, it sounds like a chipmunk. So but it's like it in reverse. So on a solid, it actually works the opposite way around. So the more dense that a solid is, the sound travels faster. And the reason why is actually it gets down to like the kinetics of the molecules. But essentially like gas is just nothing more than molecules kind of just bouncing around. And as the molecules get bigger and bigger and bigger, it actually takes more energy then to bounce those molecules around. So that's what the density of the gas is. So you have bigger molecules, it's more dense. And so it requires more energy then for that wave to propagate through. So with sulfur hexafluoride, it just takes so much energy for the same. Your vocal cords, by the way, are vibrating the exact same way that they are in just normal air. It's just that same amount of energy through sulfur hexafluoride is slowing down the wave. Whoa. So then it sounds like what a video sounds like when it's slowed down.
That is mind-boggling.
Super low.
And that's cool you can explain it like that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, and it's the opposite on a solid. So like if you put your ear like on a railroad track, right, and you hit it with a stone, you can hear it from miles away because that sound is traveling so fast.
Wow.
And it's because in a solid, the more solid the item is, the easier it is for the energy to pass from one molecule to the other, because they're more densely packed. And so they're literally right next to each other. So the denser they are, the easier it is for that energy to go whoop, right through it.
Do you feel like, because in your videos, do you explain the science or do you just show it?
We do both. So we found that actually like people react really well to seeing it, seeing is believing, seeing it, then hearing the explanation.
Yeah. Because I was thinking like for your podcast even too, how cool it is that, you know, like what's that one, which thank you for doing that by the way.
Yeah.
Like the stuff people should know or whatever it's called, stuff you should know, whatever. But it's like, I would think like, do people have the attention span to really sit through and learn it? But they do, like people really want to know.
Turns out, everybody always says this who's a little bit older, they're like, oh my God, the attention span's getting so small, whatever. Turns out the data says, no, actually, kids will watch like an hour and a half of Fortnite if they're interested. So the data proves otherwise. So in essence, the same thing with education. So it's like, look, if it's interesting, right, and you're explaining it correctly and something that someone can really understand, then people will really dial in. So that is a true misnomer based off of the audience retention on digital media.
Yeah, so just make it more interesting.
Make it more interesting, yeah.
Man, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. And I can't wait to see if you do anything with
Well, the test has already started, so we're going to find out. 7 days, here we go.
Oh, you know, a good test is put it near, they say, you probably know how to measure this stuff, I don't, but put it next to water and it'll restructure the water.
Interesting, okay.
But they have a way of measuring and they'll show you it, you know, so.
Dope.
I bet you do too.
All right, we'll just
every
time
there you
we'll
go.
take a sip before it goes in.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Ever since I wrote my goals down with the pen, my dreams and reality have both been blending in. I just hope that in the end, my debt don't extend me on my dividends. If it did, I'd have to keep pivoting. Turn the other cheek and down another dose of adrenaline. I don't need to pretend to live a life that I never did, cause I'm right where I need to be.